She packed her bag. She was done. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of hunger, 6 years of watching her mates buy new wrappers while she patched holes in the one she wore to her own wedding. But as she bent down to pick up her slippers from under the bed, her hand touched something cold, an envelope. And what was inside that envelope made her fall to her knees and beg her husband for forgiveness. Before we enter this story, if you love African tales that hit the heart like thunder, smash that subscribe button right now. Let's build this family together. Now, let me tell you what happened to Adaeze. Her name was Adaeze. She was 28 years old, but her face carried the lines of a woman twice her age, not from laughter, from worry. She had walked to Nkwo market that morning with 400 naira wrapped in a knot at the edge of her wrapper. 400 naira. That was all the money she and her husband Emeka had in this world. She was supposed to buy tomatoes, onions, a cup of rice, and if the gods smiled, a small piece of stockfish to flavor the soup. She stopped at Mama Ngozi's stall. Mama Ngozi was the kind of woman who had grown fat on the misfortunes of others. She sold her fish at high prices and her insults for free. Adaeze pointed to the smallest piece of stockfish on the wooden tray, the one that looked like it had been chewed by a rat and spat out. "How much for this one?" Adaeze asked. Her voice was quiet, the voice of a woman who had forgotten how to speak loudly. Mama Ngozi looked at Adaeze from head to toe. She looked at the faded wrapper. She looked at the rubber slippers that had been glued together 3 times. She looked at the scarf on Adaeze's head that had lost its color somewhere between the 4th and 5th year of marriage. And then Mama Ngozi laughed. Not a small laugh, a market laugh, the kind that makes other women turn around to see what is happening. Adaeze, Mama Ngozi said, loud enough for the women selling yams 3 stores down to hear. Is it true what they are saying, that your husband Emeka has become a woman, that he sits at home while you roam the market looking for scraps? The women around the stall giggled. One of them, a thin woman with a gold tooth, added her own salt to the wound. Maybe the problem is not the husband. Maybe the problem is the wife. A good wife brings good fortune. Look at her face. That is the face of bad luck. Adaeze did not cry. She had cried all her tears 2 years ago. She simply turned around and walked out of the market. She did not buy the rice. She did not buy the tomatoes. She walked home with nothing but the 400 naira still tied in her wrapper and a decision growing in her chest like a tumor. She was going to leave him. The house Adaeze and Emeka lived in was not really a house. It was 2 rooms. The walls were made of mud bricks that bled red dust during the dry season. The roof was rusted zinc that sang a terrible song whenever it rained. The floor was packed earth covered with a raffia mat that had seen better days during the Obasanjo administration. Emeka was sitting on the low wooden stool in the corner of the room. He was sharpening his machete with a stone, back and forth, back and forth. The sound was the only thing that filled the space between them. He was a handsome man. That was the tragedy of it. He had a strong jaw and kind eyes and hands that could walk from sunrise to sunset without complaint. But the land he farmed was not his own. He was a sharecropper, giving half of everything he grew to Chief Okore, who owned more land than he could walk in a day. Emeka looked up when Adaeze entered. He saw her empty hands. He saw the storm on her face. He said nothing. That was his problem. He said nothing about everything. Adaeze, Emeka, Adaeze said. Her voice was not angry. It was tired. The kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. Emeka, I am going back to my father's house. The machete stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than any words he could have spoken. Did you hear me? I said I am leaving. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot walk into that market and be treated like a stray dog. I cannot watch Nkechi, who married the same year as me, come to church with gold earrings while I borrow salt from our neighbor. I cannot. Emeka placed the machete on the floor. He looked at his hands that had calluses as hard as coconut shell, hands that worked every day and still came home empty. "If you want to go," he said slowly, "I will not stop you. A man who cannot feed his wife has no right to keep her." That was when Adaeze lost her temper. She had wanted him to fight. She had wanted him to shout, to beg, to promise that things would change. But he just sat there, accepting his failure like it was his destiny. "You are not even a man," she screamed. The words came out before she could catch them. "You are a shadow of a man. You have no shame. You have no pride. You have nothing." She turned away from him. She grabbed the old Ghana Must Go bag from the corner of the room. She began to pack. Her 2 blouses, her one good wrapper that she saved for Christmas and funerals, her Bible with the worn-out leather cover. And then she remembered her slippers, the rubber ones she wore inside the house. They were under the bed. She bent down. Her hand reached into the darkness under the bamboo bed frame. And instead of slippers, her fingers touched something smooth, something that did not belong in a house of dust and poverty. An envelope. A thick brown envelope that felt... Adaeze pulled the envelope out from under the bed. It was heavy. Not heavy with paper, heavy with something else. She turned to look at Emeka. His face had changed. The calm acceptance was gone. In its place was something she had never seen on her husband's face before. Terror. Pure, cold, river-deep terror. "Adaeze, put that back." His voice was low. It was not a request, it was a warning. "What is this, Emeka? What are you hiding from me?" "Please, in the name of everything we have been through, put it back." But Adaeze was beyond listening. The years of hunger, the years of shame, the laughter of Mama Ngozi still ringing in her ears, all of it pushed her forward. She tore the envelope open. Inside were 3 items. The first was a document. It was not regular paper. It was thick, fibrous, yellow with age, the kind of paper the colonial masters used. At the top, in faded typewriter ink, were the words, "Certificate of Title, Land Acquisition Act of 1927. Below it was a description of a piece of land. Adaeze's eyes scanned the words, Parcel 47, approximately 42 acres, bounded on the north by the Oji River, bounded on the east by the old government road. 42 acres. Adaeze's hands began to shake. 42 acres of land was not a farm, it was a kingdom. The second item was a photograph, black and white, cracked at the edges. It showed an elderly man standing in front of a massive Iroko tree. The man was dressed in a traditional chieftaincy wrapper with a leopard skin cap on his head. He held a staff. He looked like Emeka, exactly like Emeka. The same jaw, the same eyes. The third item was a letter, handwritten. The ink had faded to a pale brown, but the words were still clear. Adaeze read it out loud, her voice trembling with each syllable. To my grandson, Emeka Okafo. When you read this, I will be long gone to join the ancestors. I leave you not money, for money can be stolen. I leave you not crops, for crops can rot. I leave you the land, 42 acres of the richest soil in this part of the world. It was given to me by the district officer in 1927 for services rendered to the crown during the pacification of the hinterlands. I have kept it secret because I did not trust the jealousy of my brothers. The land is yours. It has always been yours. The documents are legal. The title is clear. But I beg you, my grandson, do not claim this land until you are ready to defend it with your life. For land such as this comes with enemies you cannot see. Adaeze lowered the letter. Her legs gave out beneath her. She sank to the dusty floor, the envelope and its contents scattered around her like fallen leaves. You have 42 acres of land, she whispered. 42 acres of titled land, and we have been eating gari without soup. We have been sleeping under a leaking roof. We have been the laughingstock of the entire village. Emeka did not look at her. He stared at the wall. My grandfather told me not to claim it until I was ready. I was waiting for the right time. Adaize laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had just discovered that her poverty was a choice. The right time, said Adaize. Emeka, we have been married for 6 years. When exactly was the right time going to come? When they buried us in borrowed coffins? The night passed in silence. Neither of them slept. Adaize sat on the floor, the documents spread before her like sacred objects. Emeka sat on the stool, his head in his hands. At dawn, Adaize spoke. Take me to the land. Emeka looked up. His eyes were red. It is far, past the old road, past the river. Nobody goes there anymore. I did not ask how far it is. I said, take me to the land. They walked for 3 hours, past the farms of other men, past the last houses of the village, into the bush where the path became narrow and the trees grew thick and wild. The sun climbed higher. Sweat dripped down Adaize's back. She did not complain. Finally, Emeka stopped. He pointed ahead. There. Adaize looked. At first, she saw nothing but bush, tall grass, thorn bushes, trees that had grown unchecked for decades. But then she saw the marker, a stone pillar half buried in the earth, with faded letters carved into it. Parcel 47. She walked forward. She pushed through the grass, and then she saw it. The land stretched out before her like a promise. It was not flat. It rolled gently, with a small stream cutting through the middle. The soil was dark, the kind of soil that farmers wept with joy. Oil palm trees grew wild, their fronds dancing in the breeze. In the distance, the Oji River glinted silver in the morning sun. 42 acres. Adaize turned to face her husband. The anger was gone now. In its place was something else, understanding. Your grandfather was right about one thing, she said. If you had claimed this land when we first married, your uncles would have killed you for it. The village would have torn us apart. You were not weak, Emeka. You were witty. You were protecting us. Emeka's shuena sagged. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to breathe fully. I did not know how to tell you, he said. Every day I watched you suffer and I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid that if you knew, you would want us to claim it immediately, and I was not ready to fight the war that would come. Adaize walked to him. She took his callous hands in hers. The war is here now, she said, but we will fight it together. No more hiding, no more shame. 3 weeks later, the village was still buzzing with the news. Emeka Okafu, the man everyone had written off as a failure, had walked into the local government office with documents older than the country itself. The documents had been verified. The title was legitimate. 42 acres of prime land along the river now legally belonged to him. Chief Okore, the man who had been taking half of Emeka's harvest for years, had sent messengers demanding a meeting. Emeka sent them back with one word: no. The uncles who had never visited their poor nephew suddenly appeared at the compound, bearing gifts of yam and palm wine. Adaize received them at the door. We are not accepting visitors today, or tomorrow, or the day after. When we are ready to see family, we will send for you. She closed the door in their faces. The sound of it shutting was the sweetest music she had ever heard. But the moment Adaize was waiting for came on a Thursday, Nko Market Day. She dressed carefully. A new wrapper, deep blue with gold patterns. A matching headscarf tied with precision. Gold earrings that caught the sun and threw it back in sharp little flashes. She walked through the market with her head high and her back straight. She stopped at Mama Ngozi's store. Mama Ngozi looked up. Her mouth fell open. The stockfish in her hand dropped back onto the tree. Adaize smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman who remembered everything. Mama Ngozi,
Adaeze said. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying across the stores just as Mama Ngozi's insults had done weeks before. I came to buy fish, but not the small one, not the one the rat killed. I want the biggest stockfish you have, the one you save for important customers. How much? Mama Ngozi's face went through several colors: shame, anger, and finally, the oily politeness of a woman who recognized that power had shifted. Adaeze, she stammered. My sister, my friend, there is no need for money between us. Take the fish, take two, take whatever you want. Adaeze placed a crisp note on the wooden tray, more than the fish was worth. I do not need your charity, Mama Ngozi. I came here to buy fish with my own money from my own husband's land. She picked up the largest stockfish on the tree. She held it up for the other market women to see. Let this be a lesson to everyone listening, Adaeze announced. The woman you laugh at today may be the woman you beg from tomorrow. And as for my husband, the one you called a woman, he had more land in his name than all your husbands combined. He was just wise enough to keep it hidden until the right time. She turned and walked away. The market was silent. Then slowly, the whispers began. But this time, they were not about Adaeze's poverty. They were about her power. 3 months had passed since Adaeze's triumphant return to Nko market. The small mud house with the leaking roof was gone now. In its place stood a proper home with cement walls, a zinc roof that gleamed under the sun, and glass windows that caught the morning light. The village talked about nothing else. But Adaeze knew something the villagers did not. Wealth does not silence enemies. It multiplies them. It was a Tuesday evening when the first sign of trouble arrived. Adaeze was pounding yam in the new mortar Emeka had carved from a single block of mahogany. The rhythmic thud of the pestle was interrupted by a knock at the door. She opened it to find 3 men standing in the fading light. She recognized them immediately. They were Emeka's uncles, the same men who had not visited once during the years of hunger, the same men who had been turned away when they came bearing false gifts. The eldest among them was Uncle Ogbonna. He was a wide man with a belly that spoke of years of eating other people's harvests. His eyes were small and calculating, set deep in a face that had forgotten how to smile genuinely. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this. Uncles, Emeka said. His voice was calm, but Adaeze could feel the tension in his fingers. You may enter. They sat in the new parlor. The uncles looked around at the furniture, the curtains, the framed photograph of Emeka's grandfather that now hung on the wall. Their eyes were hungry. Uncle Ogbonna cleared his throat. Niece, Uncle Ogbonna said. The word tasted wrong in his mouth. We have come to speak with your husband on a matter of family importance. Emeka appeared behind Adaeze. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal. Let me handle this.
1 year later. The land was no longer bush. It was a farm that made other farmers stop at the boundary and stare with open mouths. Rows of yam mounds stretched toward the horizon like a marching army. Cassava plants waved their green hands in the breeze. Oil palms stood in neat lines, their fronds heavy with red fruits. Emeka had hired workers, not sharecroppers who would take half. Proper workers who received fair wages and went home with full stomachs and dignity intact. The village men who had once laughed at him now lined up outside his gate each morning, hoping to be chosen for the day's labor. Adaeze had built a business of her own, a small shop at the front of their compound where she sold not just stockfish, but rice, beans, palm oil, and cloth from Onitsha. Mama Ngozi's stall had lost most of its customers.
The women of the village preferred to buy from Adieze, who never insulted them, never mocked their poverty, and sometimes added a little extra to their measure for the children. As for the uncles, the curse they had planted had indeed returned to them. Not through any magic Adieze had performed, but through the simple arithmetic of consequence. Uncle Ogbonna had been caught trying to sell a piece of family land that did not belong to him. The real owners, cousins from the city, had returned with lawyers and surveyors. Uncle Ogbonna was now fighting a court case that would likely strip him of everything he had stolen over the years. His belly had shrunk. His eyes had lost their calculation. He walked through the village like a man being followed by invisible accusers. The other uncles had fared no better. Their farms had failed, their children had left for the cities and stopped sending money. They came to Emeka one by one, not with demands, but with humble heads and requests. Please, they said, a small loan, just to get through the planting season. Emeka looked at Adieze. She nodded. He gave them the loans, not gifts, loans with clear terms and a written agreement, because a wise man helps his enemies, but a wiser man makes sure the help is not mistaken for weakness. On a Sunday afternoon after Mass, Adieze and Emeka sat under the shade of the Iroko tree, the same tree where they had found the curse buried, the same tree that had witnessed their turning point. Now it was a place of peace. They had built a bench beneath it, and on hot afternoons they sat there and watched their land breathe. Emeka held his wife's hand. "Do you remember the day you were going to leave me?" he asked. Adieze laughed. "I remember it like yesterday." "And do you remember what you found under the bed?" "An envelope, a secret, a future I did not know we had." Emeka was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke words that Adieze will carry with her for the rest of her life. "I kept that secret because I was afraid. I thought the world would crush us if we tried to rise. But you taught me something, Adieze. You taught me that the world only crushes those who ask for permission. Those who take what is theirs, who stand on their land and say, 'This is mine,' the world steps aside for them." Adieze leaned her head on his shoulder. The sun was setting over their 42 acres, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the distance, she could see the stream where she had burned the curse, flowing steadily, carrying away the past. "We should build a school," she said suddenly. Emeka turned to look at her. "A school?" "On the eastern edge of the land, near the road, a school for the village children, so they learn to read and write, so they learn that their future is not determined by what their parents had, but by what they dare to claim." Emeka smiled. It was the smile of a man who had found his purpose. "A school," he repeated, "and we will name it after my grandfather, Chief Okonkwo Okafo Memorial School, so that every child who passes through those gates knows the story of a man who kept a secret to protect his family, and a woman who found it and refused to stay silent." Adieze closed her eyes. She listened to the sound of the wind in the Iroko leaves. She listened to the distant laughter of children playing in the village. She listened to the sound of her own heartbeat, steady and strong. She had almost left him because of their shame. Instead, she had found the documents under the bed, and nothing, not the hunger of the past, nor the curses of jealous men, would ever make her bow her head again. That night, Adieze and Emeka sat outside their small house, the same house with the rusted roof and the mud walls. But now, leaning against the wall were bags of cement, piles of zinc roofing sheets, the beginning of a new home. Emeka held Adieze's hand. "I am sorry for the years of suffering." Adieze squeezed his hand back. "Do not be sorry. The suffering prepared us. If we had been given this land when we were young and foolish, we would have sold it for pepper soup and new clothes. But now we understand its value. We will build something that will feed our children and our children's children." She looked up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. "And Emeka?" "Yes. The next time you have a secret that big, Tell your wife. A woman who can keep the secret of your shame is a woman who can help you carry the weight of your fortune. Emeka laughed. It was the first genuine laugh Adaeze had heard from him in years. I will remember that, he said. And he did.